The Zephyrian Council chamber buzzed with nervous energy as Ambassador Crixtal adjusted his crystalline breathing apparatus. The towering alien's 6 eyes darted between the holographic displays, showing human military formations across 3-star systems. His mandibles clicked in agitation as he processed the intelligence reports flooding in from their spy networks. The humans have deployed their assassination squads to the Meridian sector, General Vexmore announced, his scaled hands gripping the command podium. Our sources confirm multiple teams of their deadliest operatives are moving toward our research facilities. Crixtal's primary eyes focused on the tactical display. Red markers indicated known human infiltration points across 12 different worlds. Each marker represented what their intelligence suggested was a full team of Earth's most elite killers. The humans had a reputation for sending overwhelming force when they wanted something destroyed. "How many teams?" Council leader Ythera asked, her voice carrying the harmonic undertones that marked her species' emotional state. The fear was evident. "At least 40 confirmed squads," Vexmore replied. "Each team consists of 8 to 12 highly trained operatives. Our analysts estimate we're facing nearly 500 of their best assassins." The chamber fell silent except for the ambient hum of the environmental systems. 500 human assassins was more than enough to cripple their entire research program. The humans had proven time and again that when they wanted something eliminated, they brought enough firepower to level mountains. Crixtal studied the intelligence reports more carefully. Something felt wrong about the patterns he was seeing. The human deployment was too obvious, too visible for a species known for their cunning and warfare. In every previous conflict, human special forces had been ghosts until the moment they struck. "Ambassador," Ythera's voice pulled him from his thoughts. "Your people have dealt with humans before. What can you tell us about their tactics?" Crixtal's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. "The humans are unpredictable. In the Proxima campaign, they sent what appeared to be a massive invasion force against the Krillian strongholds. Our allies prepared for a conventional assault. Instead, the entire army was a diversion while a single human operative infiltrated their command center and downloaded their entire defense grid." "A single operative?" General Vexmore's scales rippled with disbelief. "Against an entire planetary defense system?" "The humans have a saying," Crixtal continued. "Sometimes the right person in the right place can accomplish what an army cannot. But this situation feels different. These deployments are too visible, too scattered. It's almost as if they want us to see them coming." On the tactical display, new intelligence updates appeared in real time. Human ships were moving through hyperspace corridors that Zephyrian sensors could easily track. Their communication frequencies were barely encrypted. For a species that had mastered stealth technology decades ago, they were being remarkably careless. Dr. Zeth Khan, the lead researcher on Project Mindbridge, activated his personal display. The elderly Zephyrian's 4 arms moved with practiced efficiency as he pulled up classified files. "If the humans discover what we're developing here, it could shift the balance of power in this entire galactic arm. The neural interface technology would give us access to any species' thought patterns, including theirs. Which is exactly why we must evacuate the facility," Ythera declared. "If 40 assassination squads are coming for us, we cannot hope to defend against such overwhelming force." Crixtal raised one of his secondary hands. "Council leader, I request permission to review our defensive preparations. Something about this situation troubles me deeply." "Granted, but quickly. Our evacuation ships are already being prepared." The ambassador connected to the facility's security network through his neural implant. Data flowed through his consciousness as he reviewed sensor logs, patrol schedules, and defensive positions. The research station was built into an asteroid in the Kepler 442 system, its location known to only the highest levels of Zephyrian command. As he processed the information, a pattern emerged that made his breathing apparatus whistle with alarm. The human squad movements weren't converging on their location at all. Instead, they were spreading out across the sector in a search pattern, but their trajectories would take them past dozens of other targets first. Council leader, Crixtal interrupted the evacuation planning. The humans aren't coming directly for us. Look at their movement patterns. The holographic display shifted to show projected human routes based on their current headings. Instead of a coordinated strike on the research facility, the paths created a vast net covering nearly a quarter of the sector. They're not hunting our facility specifically, he continued. They're searching for something, but they don't know where it is. General Vexmore's scales darkened with suspicion. Then, how do you explain the massive force deployment? Before Crixtal could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the chamber. Emergency lights bathed the room in pulsing red as the facility's sensor operator, a nervous young Zephyrian named Plixin, appeared on the main screen. Council leader, we have a massive sensor anomaly in Sector 7. Something just appeared on our long-range scanners, but it's not matching any known ship configurations. Show us, Euthera commanded. The tactical display shifted to show the outer perimeter of their sensor grid. A single contact moved steadily toward their position, but its energy signature was unlike anything in their databases. It was small, roughly the size of a personal transport, but its stealth capabilities were extraordinary. How long has it been there? Crixtal asked. Unknown, sir. It just became visible 30 seconds ago, almost like it wanted us to see it. The ambassador's mandibles clicked rapidly as he processed this new information. A single ship, appearing suddenly, after maintaining perfect stealth, while massive human forces conducted obvious search patterns across the sector. The pieces of a larger puzzle were beginning to form in his mind. General, what are the odds that a single ship could penetrate our sensor grid without detection until now? Vexmore's scales rippled with uncertainty. Nearly impossible. Our sensor network was designed to detect even the most advanced human stealth technology. Unless, Dr. Zithkin interjected, his voice carrying a note of academic curiosity, the ship wasn't using stealth technology at all. What if it was simply moving through spaces our sensors weren't designed to monitor? Crixtal felt a chill run through his respiratory system. Explain. Our sensors are calibrated for three-dimensional space and standard hyperspace corridors. But theoretical physics suggests there might be other dimensions that advanced civilizations could access. Spaces between spaces where our instruments would be blind. On the display, the mysterious ship continued its approach. Its trajectory was direct and purposeful, showing no signs of evasion or uncertainty. Whoever was piloting it knew exactly where they were going. Council leader, Plixin's voice crackled over the communication system. The approaching vessel is transmitting a signal. It's requesting permission to dock. Euthera's harmonic undertones shifted to frequencies associated with complete bewilderment. It's asking permission? A single ship against our entire defense network. Patch through the communication, Crixtal ordered. Something about this situation reminded him of stories he'd heard about human psychology. They had a tendency toward dramatic gestures that seemed illogical until viewed from their unique perspective. The main screen flickered as an audio channel opened. Static filled the chamber for a moment before a voice came through, speaking in perfectly accented Zephyrian. Kepler Station, this is Operative Seraph Chun requesting priority docking clearance. I'm here to discuss the terms of your surrender. The silence that followed was so complete that Crixtal could hear his own circulatory system pumping. A single human operative requesting their surrender while 40 assassination squads searched the wrong parts of space. This is Council Leader Euthera. The Zephyrian leader finally responded. You appear to be alone and vastly outnumbered. Perhaps you should reconsider your position. The human's laugh was soft but somehow carried undertones that made Crixtal's defensive instincts activate. Council leader, I appreciate your concern for my well-being, but I think there's been a misunderstanding. Those 40 teams you've been tracking, they're not here to attack you. They're here to make sure nobody escapes after I complete my mission. General Vexmore leaned toward his communication console. Identify yourself, human. What gives you the authority to make such demands? My name is Sarah Chun. I'm what your intelligence networks would classify as a white ninja operative. And I'm here to collect Dr. Zeth Khan and his research data. Everything else is negotiable. Krickstow's mandibles stopped clicking entirely. White Ninja was a classification that appeared in their most classified intelligence files. According to those reports, humans had developed operatives who specialized in impossible infiltrations, but the details were so scarce that most analysts assumed the classification was misinformation. Dr. Zeth Khan, he whispered to the elderly researcher, what have you been working on that would interest the humans? The scientist's forearms trembled slightly as he accessed his personal files. The Neural Interface Project, but how could they know about it? The research is completely compartmentalized. On the tactical display, the human ship had reached the edge of their defensive perimeter. Point defense systems that should have automatically engaged remained silent, their targeting systems unable to achieve a lock on the small vessel. Council leader Plixen reported, our defensive systems are experiencing some kind of interference. The ship appears to be using some form of electronic countermeasures we've never encountered before. Or, the human voice interjected, apparently monitoring their communications. I've already been inside your system for the past 6 hours. Your defensive grid is currently under my direct control. Krickstow watched in fascination as status indicators across the command center shifted from green to amber. Not red, indicating system failure, but amber, suggesting external override authority. Impossible, General Vexmore hissed. Our systems are isolated from any external access. General, Sarah Chen's voice carried an almost apologetic tone. Your systems are very well designed. It took me almost 3 hours to map all the quantum encryption pathways. But you made one critical error in your security design. What error? Dr. Zeth Khan demanded, his scientific curiosity overriding his fear. You assumed that your attackers would approach from outside your defenses. You never considered what would happen if someone was already inside your network before you knew they existed. The implications hit Krickstow like a physical blow. You've been monitoring our communications since before we detected the other human forces. Actually, I've been monitoring your communications since before you knew about the other human forces. The search pattern they're running? I'm the one who provided their mission parameters. Ythera's harmonic frequencies shifted to patterns Krickstow had never heard before, indicating emotional states beyond the normal range of their species. You're telling us that this entire situation is your design? The situation is designed to give you a choice, Council Leader. You can evacuate your facility as planned, leaving behind Dr. Zeth Khan's research for me to collect. Or you can allow me to dock, and we can discuss a more mutually beneficial arrangement. Through the chamber's viewports, they could see the human ship approaching their docking bay. It moved with the kind of precision that suggested either exceptional piloting skills or complete computer control of their defensive systems. What kind of arrangement? Krickstow asked. The kind where Dr. Zeth Khan continues his research under joint human-Zephyrian oversight, instead of having his life's work confiscated and his people treated as hostile combatants. Dr. Zeth Khan's breathing apparatus whistled with agitation. My research could revolutionize neural interface technology across the galaxy. Why would humans want to share such capabilities? Doctor, your research is impressive, but you're about 15 years behind our current neural interface capabilities. What interests us is your theoretical framework for cross-species consciousness bridging. We have the technology, but we've been missing the theoretical foundation to make it work safely. The human ship settled into the docking bay with mechanical precision. Through the security cameras, they could see the airlock cycling, but no one emerged immediately. Council Leader, Krickstow said quietly, I believe we should hear what this operative has to propose. You would trust a single human who has just demonstrated the ability to completely compromise our most secure facility? General Vexmore demanded. General, consider our alternatives. If she wanted to simply take the research and eliminate us, she could have done so hours ago. The fact that she's offering to negotiate suggests that human intentions may be more complex than we assumed. Ythera studied the tactical displays showing the 40 human teams still conducting their search patterns. Very well, but This meeting will take place under full security protocols. Actually, Sarah Chen's voice interrupted. If it's all right with everyone, I'd prefer to meet in Dr. Zeth Khan's laboratory. I'm quite curious to see his neural interface prototypes in person. The audacity of the request left the council members speechless. The human operative wanted to be escorted directly to their most classified research area for her convenience. Agreed, Dr. Zeth Khan said suddenly. But I want to understand how your people have advanced so far beyond our research. Doctor, the human responded, I think you'll find that what we've learned about consciousness and neural interfacing will change your perspective on what's possible when different species work together instead of against each other. As security personnel prepared to escort their unexpected visitor to the laboratory, Crixtal couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to discover something fundamental about humanity that would reshape their understanding of the galaxy's power structures. The humans hadn't sent an assassination squad at all. They had sent something far more dangerous, a negotiator with the power to back up any deal she chose to make. Dr. Zeth Khan's laboratory occupied 3 levels of the asteroid facility's core, connected by transparent aluminum tubes that offered spectacular views of the cosmic void beyond. As the security escort led them through the main research area, Ambassador Crixtal found himself studying their human visitor with intense curiosity. Sarah Chun moved with an economy of motion that suggested extensive physical training, but she showed none of the aggressive posturing typical of military operatives. Instead, she examined their surroundings with the focused attention of a scientist, occasionally pausing to study equipment configurations or ask technical questions that demonstrated surprising knowledge of Zephyrian neural architecture. Your quantum resonance chambers are more sophisticated than our intelligence suggested, she commented, approaching a cylindrical device that hummed with barely contained energy. The harmonic frequencies you're using should theoretically be impossible to maintain in a stable configuration. Dr. Zeth Khan's forearms gestured with obvious pride. It took 17 years to develop the containment algorithms. The quantum fields interact with neural electrical patterns in ways that traditional physics couldn't predict. Because you're not just working in traditional physics, Sarah replied, producing a small device from her belt. The instrument looked deceptively simple, but when she activated it, holographic displays filled the air around them with complex mathematical equations. You're manipulating consciousness itself, which exists partially outside conventional spacetime. Crixtal watched the equations flow across the displays and felt his understanding of reality shift. The mathematics were unlike anything in Zephyrian science, incorporating dimensional variables that their theoretical physicists had only speculated about. How is this possible? Dr. Zeth Khan whispered, his breathing apparatus cycling rapidly. These calculations suggest that consciousness can exist independently of neural tissue. Not independently, Sarah corrected, adjusting parameters on her device to show new equation sets. But consciousness appears to use neural tissue as an interface point with physical reality. Think of your brain as a quantum antenna that allows a multidimensional phenomenon to interact with three-dimensional space. General Vexmore, who had insisted on accompanying the security escort, stepped closer to the holographic displays. You're suggesting that consciousness comes from outside our universe. I'm suggesting that consciousness is bigger than our universe, Sarah replied. What we call thinking and awareness are just the parts that intersect with the reality we can measure. Dr. Zeth Khan's research was getting close to discovering this, which is why we needed to make contact. Council leader Yithera studied the equations with growing amazement. Her species had natural capabilities for harmonic communication that suggested some understanding of quantum consciousness effects, but nothing approaching what the human was demonstrating. Your people have known about this for some time, she observed. We've suspected it since the early 21st century, Sarah confirmed. But we couldn't prove it until we made contact with other intelligent species. Each species interfaces with consciousness differently, which gives us different perspectives on how the phenomenon works. Dr. Zeth Khan moved to one of his primary research consoles and began pulling up classified data files. Show me your neural interface technology. I want to understand how far ahead of us you really are. Sarah smiled and touched a nearly invisible control on her collar. Immediately, her eyes took on a silvery quality as data streams began flowing across her corneas. What you're seeing is a direct neural interface that connects my consciousness to any compatible information system. Right now, I'm simultaneously monitoring the 40 search teams, analyzing your facility's complete technical specifications, and maintaining quantum entanglement communication with our research stations on 12 different worlds. Simultaneously, Krickstall's mandibles clicked with disbelief. The cognitive load should be impossible for any organic brain to process. It would be if I were trying to process all that information with just my biological neural tissue. But the interface extends my consciousness into quantum processing dimensions where computational limitations work differently. She gestured, and new displays appeared showing real-time feeds from the human search teams. Each team was systematically investigating different star systems, but their search patterns were clearly coordinated by some central intelligence. You're controlling all of them? General Vexmore asked. Coordinating, not controlling. Each operative maintains their individual consciousness and decision-making authority. But we share tactical awareness and strategic objectives through the quantum interface network. Dr. Zethkan's forearms moved frantically across his control systems as he tried to understand what he was seeing. This suggests a level of technological integration with consciousness that we haven't even theorized about. How do you maintain individual identity when sharing awareness with so many other minds? That's where your research becomes valuable to us, Sarah explained, her silvery eyes returning to normal as she disconnected from the information streams. We have the technology to create these quantum interfaces, but we're still learning how different species maintain consciousness coherence during neural bridging. She activated her device again, and this time the holographic displays showed brain scan data from multiple species, including humans, Zephyrians, and several others that Krickstall didn't recognize. Each species has evolved different strategies for organizing consciousness. Humans tend to maintain strong individual identity barriers, which makes us good at independent decision-making, but limits our ability to share complex conceptual frameworks. Zephyrians, on the other hand, have natural harmonic consciousness abilities that allow for much deeper information sharing. But you fear losing individual identity in the process, Dr. Zethkan observed. We did, until we discovered that consciousness isn't actually individual at all. What we think of as self is really a particular pattern of interaction between a multidimensional consciousness field and local neural tissue. You can share awareness without losing the pattern that defines who you are. Ythera's harmonic frequencies shifted to patterns of deep contemplation. You're describing a fundamental revision of how we understand the nature of existence itself. We're describing reality as it actually works, rather than how it appears to work when you're limited to three-dimensional observation, Sarah replied. Dr. Zethkan's research was beginning to discover these principles independently, which is why we needed to make contact before he accidentally created a consciousness bridging effect that could damage local space-time. Damage space-time? General Vexmore's scales rippled with alarm. Dr. Zethkan pulled up his most recent experimental data. I've been detecting unusual gravitational anomalies during my neural interface tests. Small distortions that appear and disappear without any apparent cause. Sarah studied the data with obvious concern. Doctor, those aren't gravitational anomalies. They're dimensional rifts. When consciousness interfaces with quantum fields improperly, it can create tears in the fabric of local reality. How is that possible? Krickstall demanded. Because consciousness partially exists outside normal space-time, any technology that manipulates consciousness directly affects the dimensional boundaries that keep our universe stable. Think of it like puncturing a bubble from the inside. The implications struck the Zephyrian scientists with terrifying clarity. Dr. Zethkan's experiments hadn't just been advancing neural interface technology. They have been unintentionally weakening the structure of reality itself. This is why you came here personally, Yathera realized. Not to steal our research, but to prevent us from accidentally destroying local space-time. Partly, Sarah confirmed. But also because your theoretical framework for cross-species consciousness bridging could help us develop safer interface technologies. What you've discovered about harmonic consciousness resonance could solve problems we've been working on for decades. Dr. Zethkan moved to his primary experimental apparatus, a complex array of quantum field generators surrounding a central interface chair. Show me how your technology works. I want to understand the safety protocols you've developed. Sarah approached the experimental setup with obvious caution. Doctor, before I demonstrate anything, we need to modify your field generators. The quantum resonance frequencies you're using are about 3 harmonics away from creating a reality cascade that would destabilize this entire star system. A reality cascade? General Vexmore stepped backward from the apparatus. Imagine dominoes falling, but instead of dominoes, it's the quantum foundations that keep matter and energy stable in 3-dimensional space. Once it starts, it doesn't stop until it runs out of material to destabilize. Working together, Dr. Zethkan and Sarah began reconfiguring the experimental apparatus. The human's knowledge of quantum consciousness interfaces was so advanced that she could predict equipment failures before they occurred, while the Zephyrian's understanding of harmonic resonance allowed him to fine-tune the modifications with extraordinary precision. Your people must have made these same mistakes during your early research, Dr. Zethkan observed as they adjusted field generator alignments. We had advantages you didn't, Sarah replied. When humans first developed neural interface technology, we were already working with 3 other species who had different approaches to consciousness manipulation. We learned the safety protocols through collaborative research rather than independent experimentation. 3 other species? Yathera asked. Our intelligence networks have identified only 2 species with advanced neural interface capabilities. That's because the Etherians prefer to remain undetected, and the Vorthack exists primarily in quantum dimensions that overlap with our reality only occasionally. Both species have consciousness structures that are radically different from biological intelligence. Krixtau felt his understanding of galactic civilization expanding beyond anything their diplomatic corps had imagined. You're describing a collaborative network of species working together on consciousness research. We're describing the only safe way to advance consciousness technology, Sarah corrected. The quantum fields that consciousness uses for interfacing with reality are shared across all intelligent species. What one species does with consciousness technology affects the stability of those fields for everyone else. As they completed the modifications to Dr. Zethkan's apparatus, Sarah activated her neural interface again. This time, instead of the silvery overlay in her eyes, her consciousness seemed to expand visibly. The air around her shimmered with quantum effects as her awareness extended into dimensions beyond normal perception. Now I can demonstrate how our neural interface technology actually works, she said, her voice carrying harmonic undertones that resembled Zephyrian emotional communication. But, more importantly, I can show you what your research was about to accomplish. She gestured, and the modified experimental apparatus activated. Instead of the chaotic energy patterns that Dr. Zethkan's previous experiments had generated, the quantum fields stabilized into elegant geometric structures that seemed to exist partially outside normal space. This is a stable consciousness bridge, Sarah explained. It allows multiple individuals to share awareness while maintaining personal identity coherence. But watch what happens when I connect to the network. Additional patterns began forming in the quantum fields as Sarah's consciousness linked with invisible networks spanning interstellar distances. Through the experimental apparatus, the Zephyrian researchers could sense other minds, human, alien, and stranger entities that defied classification. How many consciousnesses are in this network? Dr. Zethkan whispered. Currently active in this local galactic region? Approximately 43 million individuals across 17 different species and 4 types of non-biological intelligence. The number was so vast that Krikstal's cognitive processes struggled to comprehend it. A galactic civilization of conscious beings sharing awareness and knowledge across interstellar distances. And you're inviting us to join this network, Yathera said. We're inviting you to help us expand it safely, Sarah replied. Your harmonic consciousness abilities could help us develop interface technologies that work for species we haven't been able to connect with yet. There are at least 6 other intelligent species in this galactic arm that we know about, but can't safely establish neural bridges with. Dr. Zethkan studied the quantum field patterns with growing excitement. The applications would be limitless. Shared scientific research, instant communication across any distance, collaborative problem-solving on a galactic scale, and shared responsibility for maintaining the quantum stability that keeps all our realities functioning properly, Sarah added. Because once you're part of the consciousness network, what affects one species affects everyone. As the demonstration continued, Krikstal realized that they weren't just being offered access to advanced technology. They were being invited to join a galactic community that operated on principles completely different from traditional diplomacy and warfare. This changes everything we understand about galactic civilization, he said quietly. This is galactic civilization, Sarah replied. Everything else is just species that haven't figured out how to work together yet. The Consciousness Bridge demonstration had been active for 3 hours when the first unexpected contact occurred. Dr. Zethkan was monitoring the quantum field harmonics when his instruments detected something that shouldn't have been possible. An intelligence attempting to communicate through the experimental apparatus from outside their local dimensional framework. Sarah, he called urgently, we're receiving some kind of signal through the consciousness bridge, but it's not coming from your network. Sarah's awareness immediately shifted focus, her neural interface analyzing the incoming communication attempt. Her expression grew troubled as she processed what she was detecting. That's not possible, she said quietly. The quantum fields we're using are isolated from external dimensional frameworks, specifically to prevent unauthorized contact. The signal strengthened, and suddenly the laboratory's environmental systems began responding to patterns that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. Lights dimmed and brightened in complex sequences while atmosphere processors adjusted humidity and pressure according to some unknown protocol. Whatever it is, it's accessing our facility systems through the consciousness bridge, General Vexmore reported, his scales darkening with alarm. Our security protocols are being overridden by something that isn't showing up on any of our sensors. Ambassador Krikstal watched the displays as new data patterns began forming in the quantum field matrix. Unlike the elegant geometric structures of Sarah's consciousness network, these patterns were chaotic, almost organic in their complexity. It's trying to communicate, Dr. Zethkan realized. The environmental changes are following mathematical progressions. Look at the light patterns, their prime number sequences. Sarah's neural interface was working frantically to analyze the contact. This is coming from a dimensional framework that overlaps with our reality, but exists primarily outside normal space-time. The intelligence structure is unlike anything in our network databases. Could it be one of the species you mentioned? The Etherians or the Vorthak? Council leader Yathera asked. No, their consciousness signatures are completely different. This is something we've never encountered before. The communication attempt suddenly intensified, and the consciousness bridge apparatus began resonating with harmonics that made everyone in the laboratory feel a strange sense of familiarity, as if they were remembering something they had never experienced. It's not just trying to communicate, Krikstal said with growing amazement. It's trying to remember us. This intelligence has some kind of connection to our species that predates our current civilization. Through the consciousness bridge, images began forming in their minds. Not visual images, but conceptual impressions that bypassed normal sensory processing and went directly to understanding. They saw the galaxy as it had existed millions of years ago, when civilizations now lost time had established the quantum consciousness networks that modern species were still discovering. The consciousness network we've been using, Dr. Zethkin whispered, it's not something that was invented. It's something that was left behind by previous galactic civilizations. Sarah's neural interface was struggling to process the influx of information. The entity that's contacting us appears to be a preservation archive created by those ancient civilizations. It's been monitoring the quantum consciousness fields, waiting for new species to rediscover the network technology. The environmental patterns in the laboratory shifted again, and this time they could sense emotional undertones in the communication. Vast relief, ancient loneliness, and something that might have been hope. It's been alone for millions of years, Yathera said, her harmonic communication abilities allowing her to interpret the emotional content more clearly than the others. Waiting for someone to re-establish contact with the consciousness network. Through the bridge, more complex information began flowing. Technical specifications for consciousness interface technologies that were far more advanced than anything in Sarah's network. Theoretical frameworks that suggested reality itself might be a collaborative creation of conscious intelligence. Historical data about galactic civilizations that had existed before their species evolved. This changes everything we thought we knew about the galaxy, General Vexmore said, his scales rippling with patterns that indicated cognitive overload. But as the information transfer continued, Sarah noticed dangerous fluctuations in the quantum field matrix. The data stream is destabilizing our local dimensional framework. The consciousness bridge isn't designed to handle information transfer of this magnitude. Warning alarms began sounding throughout the facility as gravitational anomalies appeared in multiple sections. The same space-time distortions that Dr. Zethkin had been detecting in his experiments were now manifesting on a much larger scale. "We need to shut down the bridge," Dr. Zethkin said reluctantly. "The quantum field resonance is approaching cascade threshold." Wait, the ancient entity communicated through the environmental systems, its message appearing as text on every display screen in the laboratory. Critical information transfer incomplete. Species survival protocols require immediate implementation. Species survival protocols? Crixtal asked. New data flowed through the consciousness bridge, showing them galactic maps that revealed something extraordinary. The galaxy was not randomly populated with intelligent species. Every civilization that had developed consciousness interface technology had been guided to specific locations by the ancient preservation archives. "You're telling us that the distribution of intelligent species across the galaxy is artificial," Sarah said. "Necessary," the entity responded. Consciousness network requires minimum viable population of interface-capable species to maintain dimensional stability. Current network approaching critical mass for next evolutionary phase. The implications were staggering. Their species weren't just joining an existing consciousness network. They were participants in a galactic-scale project that had been in development for millions of years. What evolutionary phase? Dr. Zethkin demanded. Instead of answering directly, the entity began transferring technical specifications for something called a reality anchor, a device that would allow the consciousness network to maintain stable dimensional frameworks even when interfacing with entities from outside normal space-time. The galaxy is preparing for contact with intelligences from other galactic clusters, Sarah realized as she processed the technical data. Consciousness is so advanced that they exist primarily outside our dimensional framework. And if we're not prepared for that contact, the quantum shock could destabilize reality across multiple galactic arms, the entity confirmed. The gravity of their situation was becoming clear. They weren't just dealing with advanced technology or diplomatic contact with alien species. They were being recruited for a project that would determine whether consciousness itself could survive contact with forms of intelligence that operated on cosmic scales. "How much time do we have?" Yathera asked. Detection networks indicate advanced extragalactic intelligence probes have entered outer perimeter of local galactic cluster. Estimated time to direct contact, 17 standard years. 17 years to prepare for contact with intelligences that could accidentally destroy their entire galaxy simply by trying to communicate with it. The 40 human teams you deployed, Krixtal said to Sarah, they weren't really searching for our facility, were they? They were establishing quantum consciousness relay points across this entire sector, Sarah confirmed. We've been preparing the network infrastructure needed to handle the Reality Anchor project. Your facility was identified as a critical node because of Dr. Zethkan's research into cross-species consciousness bridging. Dr. Zethkan studied the technical specifications flowing through the consciousness bridge. Building these reality anchors will require collaboration between every species with consciousness interface capabilities. The theoretical framework alone will need input from at least a dozen different types of intelligence, which is why the ancient preservation archives have been guiding species development for millions of years, the entity explained. Each species develops different approaches to consciousness interface technology based on their evolutionary history. Combined, these approaches provide the theoretical foundation needed for reality anchor construction. But as they discussed the implications, the quantum field fluctuations were becoming more severe. Sections of the facility were experiencing localized space-time distortions that made normal matter behave unpredictably. We have to shut down the bridge now, Sarah insisted. The dimensional framework can't handle much more stress. Information transfer 73% complete, the entity reported. Remaining data critical for reality anchor construction protocols. General Vexmore was monitoring facility systems as gravitational anomalies spread through their installation. Council leader, we need to evacuate non-essential personnel. Some sections are experiencing time dilation effects that could trap people in temporal loops. The choice was clear, but terrible. They could continue the information transfer and risk destabilizing local space-time, potentially destroying their facility and everyone in it. Or they could shut down the bridge and lose access to information that might be critical for galactic survival. There's a third option, Dr. Zethkan said suddenly. We don't shut down the bridge, we relocate it. Relocate it where? Sarah asked. Into deep space, away from any gravitational fields that could be destabilized by quantum cascade effects. My research ship has the necessary equipment to maintain consciousness bridge functionality during transportation. It was an incredible risk. Moving an active consciousness bridge through hyperspace while it was connected to an extra-dimensional intelligence could create space-time distortions across multiple star systems. But it might be their only chance to complete the information transfer without destroying their facility. The entity, Ythera, asked, can you maintain the connection if we relocate the bridge? Affirmative. Consciousness network exists independently of local dimensional coordinates. Physical location irrelevant for information transfer protocols. Sarah checked the status of her teams scattered across the sector. My people can provide escort and emergency containment if the quantum fields destabilize during transport. As they prepared for the dangerous relocation, Krixtal realized that they had moved far beyond simple diplomatic contact or technology exchange. They were now actively participating in a project that would shape the future of consciousness itself on a galactic scale. Once we complete this information transfer, he said, there's no going back to the way things were before. There is never going to be a way back, Sarah replied. The galaxy is changing whether we participate or not. The only question is whether we help guide that change or let it happen to us. The ancient entity's communication took on undertones of urgency as they prepared to relocate the consciousness bridge. Warning, extragalactic intelligence probes have accelerated approach vectors. Estimated time to contact reduced to 11 standard years. Reality anchor construction must begin immediately upon information transfer completion. 11 years instead of 17. The cosmic intelligences approaching their galaxy were moving faster than the ancient preservation systems had predicted. as Dr. Zefkan's research ship prepared to receive the consciousness bridge apparatus. Everyone in the laboratory understood that they were about to take a step that would commit their entire species to a project spanning multiple galactic civilizations. "Are we ready for this?" General Vexmore asked. "Ready or not," Dr. Zefkan replied as the transfer sequence began. "We're about to find out what happens when a galaxy learns to think as one."